Hello, Boston PH people. I am Matt Murphy from Boston PHP, and I'm joined today by Mike Toppa. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how are
How
you?
are you?
I'm good, thanks.
So Mike is going to be our featured speaker for our meetup on Wednesday, September 9th. And Mike's going to be talking about dependency inversion and dependency injection. So Mike, can you tell us a little bit about the things that you're going to be talking about?
Sure. It's kind of a challenging topic for a meetup because it's an advanced topic about object-oriented programming, but at the same time, we want to keep the talk accessible to newer programmers so they can benefit from it and learn some things and not feel like it's just going over their head. So what I'll do in the talk is, in the first 15 minutes or so, do kind of a crash course on some of the basics of object-oriented programming. So newer programmers in the audience can follow along as we get into the main topic, which is dependency injection and dependency inversion. When we get into the talk, I'll explain the differences between those two phrases. But just to give you a quick idea of what it means is, when people start learning about object-oriented programming, the way they're usually introduced to it is through this idea of inheritance. Like, there's an animal class, and then there are, dog and cat subclasses, or there's a vehicle class with car and truck subclasses. And inheritance is definitely a really useful technique, but something that's become much more common, over the past really 10 or 20 years is more of a what's called a composition style to object-oriented programming, where you have specialized objects that sort of have a job to do, and to create the overall functionality of your application, those objects work together. So what we're really talking about with object-oriented programming is creating a web of collaborating objects that work together to accomplish the goals of your application. So a good technique for getting those objects to work together is dependency injection, where you have an object that needs another object. Say you want to turn on a lamp with a button, so maybe you have a lamp object and a button object. You can use dependency injection to sort of provide one object to the other, and have an interface that defines how those two objects should work together. So that's sort of a very quick idea of what the talk will be about.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. This will be one of we cover talks that cover a huge range of topics. So I think this will be a great one, really digging into PHP and following a little bit more on the advanced side of things. I'm really happy that you're going to be giving kind of an intro to the concepts. But this should be a great talk for people who really want to dig into some of the more advanced concepts in PHP. Am I right about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm hoping to make it. So my understanding is I've got about an hour, so that's great. It gives me enough time to cover some introductory material at the beginning, but then as you get into the middle and the end, get into the more advanced techniques.
Great. And do you mind if we talk a little bit about your background? I know that you just recently moved to the Boston area, and it looks like I was on your blog, but maybe talk a little bit about the company that you run. And it sounds like you just moved here, and it sounds like you're talking a lot. At least looking at your blog, it seems like you're giving quite a few talks. So you're like hitting the ground running here in Boston. But love to hear a little bit more about you and your company and what you're up to.
Yeah, sure. So my career pretty much has been web application development. That's what I've been doing for about 20 years now, since the days of HTML 1.0. And I love it. I've enjoyed it all this time and continued to really enjoy it. And I've worked a lot of different places. I used to be in the Bay Area in the 90s. I did the .com thing. I worked at E-Trade and Ask Jeeves. And I skillfully avoided becoming a .com millionaire.
Ask Jeeves. Wow,
Yeah,
I haven't heard those two words said together in a while.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
still around. Now it's just
Yeah.
ask.com. They couldn't afford to keep licensing the Jeeves names from P.G. Woothouse's estate.
No kidding. Wow.
Right,
Okay.
right. But yeah, they're still around, just much smaller than they used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was there for a while, the stock was at 200, and by the time my shares vested and I could actually sell them, the stock was worth like 2. So
Wow. That must have been an interesting ride, though, I
it
imagine.
was. I mean, I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun. And, for a while, people were starting to believe in this idea of like, you know, creating money out of nothing,
Yeah.
and then of course, reality eventually deflated that idea. But anyway, so I did that. I've spent a good part of my career in the university environment. I've worked at Georgetown and Stanford, and for 8 years, I was at the University of Pennsylvania in the School of Medicine. I was the director of the web applications team there. And so that was, was in Philadelphia for about, 12 years. So most of that time I was at Penn. And then most recently, before coming to Boston, I was at a consulting shop called PromptWorks, which was a great place. I loved working there. I hadn't really done a lot of consulting work before. I really loved the variety of it, working with different clients, with different kind of projects and challenges. And I really loved the focus that they had in their business. The focus was just 100% on quality, not just, turning out something quick to make a buck. But the culture there was very much having everyone in the office. And then my wife got a new job here in Boston. So we've moved here, and I thought I would sort of carry forward the experience I had at PromptWorks. So I've started another consulting firm called Poka-Yoke Design with a friend of mine. We've done some work together over the years. And we do a lot of work with PHP and WordPress. We also do Ruby on Rails. It's kind of an interesting combination, but I've been doing both of those things for a long time now. I really enjoy both sort of platforms.
That's great.
They meet different needs, so it's kind of fun being able to do both and meet client needs and not just sort of shoehorn them into the platform I happen to know.
Yeah, and that's unusual, don't you think, from a consulting standpoint? What's the term, like when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's cool that you guys can offer two pretty different platforms.
Yeah.
Rails and WordPress. And do you do any like bare PHP or other frameworks, or is all your PHP towards WordPress?
At the moment, it's WordPress. When I was at the University of Pennsylvania, we were a PHP shop. And for most of that time, we actually had our own framework, because when I started there back in 2003, there really weren't a lot of web frameworks to choose from. So we actually rolled our own. Since then, they've adopted another framework. But yeah, I really love being able to sort of cross-pollinate between the communities.
That's great.
A lot of good ideas in both, and being able to share ideas, I think, is really great. And that's one of the things that motivates, my speaking. Since I got here, I spoke at Boston WordCamp. I talked about, good business practices for consulting. But I spoke at a number of WordCamps, and I actually very rarely talk about just WordPress. I talk about good coding practices, good business practices that really apply to, any language, any platform, and try to bring that message into the sort of WordPress community.
It's great.
Well,
we're super excited to have you speak here. I personally feel very lucky to have you talking about this topic. So just to recap for everybody, Mike's going to be talking on Wednesday, September 9th. We start our events at 6 p.m. We do free pizza from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. We do a few announcements at about 7, and then we roll right into our main presentation. So Mike will start talking at about 7, and he'll talk for about an hour. So we really hope that you can join us. It's at Microsoft Nerd, which is 1 Memorial Drive in Cambridge, right there, right alongside the Charles River. So Mike, thank you very much for doing this interview, and we really look forward to seeing you on September 9th.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, thanks. See you then.
All right.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.